Now, more than 3 million homes have had cavity wall insulated fitted under various schemes set up by the government. The work was paid for by the energy companies, and too often, apparently, the quality of that work has been poor.
The BBC can reveal that in hundreds of thousands of homes, the insulation could have failed because it simply wasn't fitted to the required standard. Faulty insulation can also lead to damp, mould and related health problems, as our correspondent Zoe Conway reports.
Zoe Godrich scrubs black mould off the walls of her house every couple of weeks.
Horrific, absolutely horrific. It's absolutely heartbreaking because I can't provide my children's basic needs of a safe, warm home.
The mould took over her Swansea home after cavity wall insulation was fitted for free 3 years ago under a government-backed scheme.
And this is where we all sleep.
All four of you in this room?
Yeah, my 15-year-old sleeps here and I sleep here with my 6 and my 5-year-old.
They sleep on mattresses on the floor, their mould-ridden beds thrown away, her children's bedrooms uninhabitable.
My children's health has been severely affected. So my daughter, who's got asthma, she takes the steroid pump. My son then, he's on steroid creams for his eczema. His eczema bleeds, it's quite severe.
And were they on this medication before the insulation was installed?
No.
Zoe says that within weeks of the insulation going in, water was running down the wall of her daughter's bedroom.
It was just constant. It's like a little waterfall.
The company that fitted it went bust. In desperation, she took out a £7,000 loan to get it extracted. Without insulation, the house is cold. She can't afford to turn up the heating, causing yet more mould. It even spread to her children's toys.
I know, it was absolutely disgusting.
Since the 1920s, homes have a gap or cavity between the outer and inner wall. The insulation is made out of fiberglass wool, polystyrene beads or sometimes a polyurethane foam. More than 3 million homes have had it done under government schemes since 2008. 5% were inspected to check on the quality of the work. Figures compiled by the regulator Ofgem, seen by the BBC, suggest that hundreds of thousands of homes could have failed insulation, which can lead to damp and mould. David Walter is a building surveyor. He says Zoe's house would not have been in a good enough condition to have insulation.
We can actually see that there's a crack in the actual external wall. Driving rain can actually penetrate in through the crack inside the cavity, wet the insulation and transfer straight through to the room. The crack should have been fixed and then insulated.
But that's not all. Turns out the extraction wasn't done properly either.
The actual cavity insulation should have been removed, but it's still inside the wall. It just hasn't been done properly. It's a botched installation.
David has been looking at insulated homes all over the country for more than 25 years.
The industry is motivated by money. They get government grants for doing this work. They had huge sums of money in the past. So there's an incentive for the contractors just to get people signed up, get the job done and get the grant money.
5 years ago, the government asked Trustmark, an arm's-length organisation, to improve the quality of installations. But is the scheme really working? Installers UK, the company that put the insulation into Zoe's home, is Trustmark registered, and City Energy Network Limited, the company that arranged funding for the work, is also Trustmark registered. Installers UK says the problems were caused by a hole in the roof, but the standards body, the British Assessment Bureau, says that if there had been any issues with the property, the work should not have gone ahead. City Energy says its only involvement was to arrange the funding. It says it has no connection with Installers UK, nor was it involved in the installation process. These government-backed insulation schemes were targeted to help vulnerable people. When they work, they cut energy bills and make homes warmer. When they fail, it can be devastating for people least equipped to cope.
There's no insulation value here at all.
In the northwest of England, a camera is inserted into a cavity. It shows the foam insulation hasn't filled it properly.
taking out the brickwork, we can see inside there's no foam. It's a void. It's just been sprayed on the inside wall and hasn't expanded. This proves that this insulation wasn't installed correctly and wasn't policed and checked as the installation went along.
The work was done in 2015. It's caused cracks in the living room, damp and mould.
I'm just gutted. They've ruined my home.
Debbie was given a guarantee. It could pay out a maximum of £4,000, yet it will cost her tens of thousands of pounds to get her house fixed. The law firm which took on her case has gone bust.
You think you take a government-backed scheme, so it must be right if the government's backing it, and it's not.
Alice, do you want a ham sandwich?
What Zoe and her children want most of all is for their house to feel like a home once more.
The life has just been knocked out of me. For the last 3 years, that's all I've done is fight company after company after company, and I've got no further forward. I don't see light at the end of the tunnel.
City Energy says it has recognised and sympathised with the position in which Ms Godrich finds herself, and although it has no obligation to do so, it has sought to resolve matters directly with her in an effort to assist. Trustmark says the problems at Ms Godrich's property are complex. The work was carried out under an earlier standard and did not take the whole house approach that current standards do, preventing some of the issues seen here. However, the situation Ms Godrich is left in is completely unacceptable and needs to be put right. We will work with the British Assessment Bureau and City Energy to achieve a suitable solution which makes Ms Godrich's property a warm, comfortable and healthy home for her and her family.
Well, that was Zoe Conway's report, and she is with us here on the sofa now. So, Zoe, just explain what goes wrong with this and why does it happen?
Cavity wall installation is actually quite hard to put into a home. It's not straightforward. You need the right skills to do it. You need to understand the products you're putting in. One of the key things is the gap between the outer and the inner wall, the cavity, needs to be clear when either this wall or these beads go into it. And that's important because if there's any rubble in it, that can cause it to go wrong because the insulation comes in, it's warm. The rubble can be cold, so that creates what's known as a cold spot. That can cause condensation, moisture, which then travels into the house, and that can cause damp and mould. So this all has got to be done properly, and it needs all the necessary checks. And for several years, there's been concerns by campaigners, by MPs, by homeowners, that these checks simply haven't been happening. So there's an issue here about a lack of oversight, a lack of regulation. Now, to be fair to the government, they did recognise there was a problem. And a few years ago, they set up a review and they tasked an independent organisation called Trustmark to raise standards. And Trustmark has been running now for a number of years. And Trustmark also acknowledged that there needs to be more work done on consumer protection. It needs to be more robust. But meanwhile, we've got a legacy of 15 years of this work having been done with people stuck, not knowing where to turn, as we've heard from those two cases.
Yeah, and those two cases were so stark in your report, but I guess people watching will be wondering how widespread, how much further does this issue go?
The truth is we simply don't know. We've got a snapshot here based on these Ofgem figures. Now, to be clear, some of this is about companies not doing the paperwork properly. But let's not dismiss that. If you're not giving a homeowner the guarantee that they're entitled to, if you're not doing the paperwork, well, what does that tell you about the quality of the installation, the quality of the work that's been done? So this is just a snapshot. 15 million people have had this done, and we simply don't know how many people have got problems. And as I say, this is a cross-party issue. Lots of MPs over the years have been standing up in the House of Commons asking for some sort of investigation into the scale of this, because a lot of these homes will never have been inspected. There's also an issue here about redress. I've been looking at this for 6 years now, and what I keep hearing from homeowners, what you've heard in that report, is people simply don't know where to turn. One of the issues is that people get given a guarantee for the work. Now, what Citizens Advice say is that often that guarantee is frankly not really worth very much, because you go to the guarantee agency, you say you've got a problem, and then it's really hard to get them to pay out.
Yeah. So I'm sure you'll keep across it for as many years as it takes. Thank you very much indeed for coming and joining and explaining that.